Come on in, everyone, and pull up a cozy seat. No reason to still be on your feet, because today's topic might have you dancing a bit, so save those little toes of yours. Oh, right, I'm Brandon.
Hey, and I'm Leia, and welcome everyone to the movie theater lobby.
So, Leia, you can see I've got this little Bluetooth speaker here, and of course, you know me, I can't resist a little bit of theming and a little bit of scheming. So I was going to start with a swell of music and see if it would inspire us to break out into a musical number as they always do in those fancy dancy musicals.
Oh, I knew you had something planned.
But, obviously real life isn't like those musicals, Leia. I didn't rehearse or write any lyrics, figuring it would just, work.
Just come out and start singing.
Yeah, it
like
always
they do.
happens that way in the movies and on stage.
Yeah, well, welcome to the real world. I mean, no spontaneous, meaningful lyrics and elaborate dance numbers.
Sadly, no. Plus, no one really wants to hear this voice singing. So, blah, whatever. Let's just get a few vocal warm-ups in, just in case we feel the inspiration during the show, so we can talk about
La La Land.
All right. I remember you. And I'll admit I was a little curt that night.
Kurt?
Okay, I was an asshole. I can admit that.
Okay.
La La Land, a 2016 romantic comedy musical. A chorus of honking car horns blare and welcome us to L.A. Radio stations roll along the band and a wide range of musical stylings melt into one another until the cacophony becomes a melody. Commuters step out of their vehicles and stomp, prance, and twirl about as they sing of chasing dreams, forgetting the nose and reaching for the heights where their goals are perched. It's another day of sun. Even when dreams seem out of grasp, when the pursuit of lifelong ambitions is stolen from their palms, the ever-sunny L.A., with its lofty hills and echoing gorges, shines the revivifying rays of soul-warming sun down upon them, and tomorrow, just like today, will be another day of sun.
It's another day of sun.
Despite the grand, dreamlike number we just had the fortune to see, forgetting the sunny, warm, inviting landscape before us, winter has come, and this traffic jam goes for miles. Miles upon miles of soul-crushing bumper-to-bumper insanity that leaves one plenty of time to let their mind wander and dream, and maybe even get angry. A horn blares at length as traffic begins to move, and the very upset fellow in the convertible hastily speeds around the confused and oblivious young woman reading lines in her Prius. In a coffee shop, the line reader tends to a cash register as she leers dreamily at the celebrities that patronize her counter. Dinged to attention by a buzz of her phone, this acting hopeful realizes she has an audition to attend and hurriedly tears away her apron and wishes her boss a good evening. We observe from behind the casting desk as the aspirant delivers her lines, walking through a range of emotion. And just at the apex of pouring her heart into the effort, a door is opened and the casting agent is distracted by a phone call waiting for their attention.
Tell her I'll call her back.
In 2 minutes?
Less than 2 minutes.
I'll go get your
I'm
lunch.
almost done. Thank you.
Scene ruined and dreams dashed again. Returning home, downtrodden, but not entirely beaten, is Mia Dolan, played by Emma Stone. Mia's roommates are readying themselves for a night out at a party and insist she join them, convincing her that this could be her chance to meet someone who may notice her talents, someone who may be stricken by her looks, who may be just the person to make her dreams reality, that they may be the someone in a crowd and be her own personal Queen Mab, exhausted by the insincerity of the crowd as she does the same routine, doing her best to sell herself to strangers who really don't particularly care. Mia takes her leave as false passion and fake excitement wind around her. On top of it all, tragedy strikes as her car has been towed. Mia wanders her way home but passes the sound of a piano softly cooing from the small club along her path. Back in the sun now, riding along in a convertible with the angry man from the opening, we see Mia give the finger to the man in the convertible, this time from his perspective, not hers. We follow him this time to his apartment where he is shocked to find his sister waiting for him, and she is sitting on a stool that was once sat upon by Hoagie Carmichael, which the baked potato so carelessly tossed away. After a familial beatdown and debate over romance and dreams, Sebastian, played by Ryan Gosling, practices piano and makes his way to a gig playing Christmas carols at a restaurant called Lipton's. After a long night of dull, meaningless, uninspired, unpassionate holiday cheer, Seb finally rolls into a one full set list for you, almost, and one for me, medley of Deck the Halls, into Mia and Sebastian's theme, parentheses late for the date. A more poignant title for a theme could not be assigned. With this deviation, Sebastian is fired.
I mean, that's what you're saying, but it's not what you mean. What you mean is...
You're fired.
And just as the awe-struck Mia breaks from her entranced by the music state and pointedly crosses the room to compliment the impeccable piano playing, the frustrated Sebastian shoulder checks her into disbelief again.
I just heard you play, and I wanted to...
But not because of enraptured, melodic emotion. Spring has sprung after many more auditions, and Mia finds herself at yet another wrote-by-the-numbers pool party. An 80s cover band plays the event, and Mia realizes just exactly who's garbed in red, playing the keyboard and guitar. It's Sebastian. When she has the chance, she requests,
Girl in the front.
I ran.
I ran. A fantastic suggestion. All right, piano man, tickle those ivories. Let's hit it.
knowing full well it's an insult to the inconsiderate Sebastian on a few levels. At the end of the long party that seems to have lasted well into the evening, Mia spots Sebastian leaving and takes one last shot. She teases/uses him by asking him to grab her car keys, as a means to get out of a conversation she seems to want no part of, but also to dig one last time. Sebastian escorts Mia to her Prius, and the music begins to tinkle to life.
The sun is nearly gone. No lights are turning on.
And, oh, wow, I feel like we're stepping into some not-so-passive-aggressive bouncing between the two and a little will-they-won't-they romantic type tension starting up here. So let's leave this duo to their lovely night and step out of their uncomfortably antagonistic relationship.
What a waste of a lovely night.
Let's get on to the fun stuff, shall we?
I think we'll start with director-writer Damien Chazelle. So Chazelle, at a young age, tried his hand as being a jazz drummer, but he felt he would never be great, so he went into film.
Yeah,
so that's
changing your trajectory a
yeah,
little
so that's
bit.
kind of what he did. I mean, he didn't give up playing the drums,
No.
but, he studied filmmaking in the Visual and Environmental Studies Department at Harvard University and graduated in 2007. At Harvard, he lived in Courier House, and he was roommates with composer and his now frequent collaborator, Justin Hurwitz. And unsurprisingly, of course, he did the score for La La Land, And then after graduation, he moved to LA in hopes of attracting interest in producing La La Land. He started off in college writing Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench with Hurwitz, which received a little bit of acclaim. And then with the funds that they made on that and the publicity that they made on that, they went on to do Whiplash. And Whiplash did really, really well.
Yeah, really intense movie.
Really intense movie, pretty dark. Because of Whiplash, then he was able to create La La Land. So La La Land was conceived like 6 years prior, and they had people come to them and tell them that they would produce it, but they wanted to change a bunch of things, and they only gave him $1 million budget, and it just didn't feel right. So he held on to it, and then after Whiplash, he was able to actually do the exact vision that he was hoping to do instead of somebody else's vision.
Yeah.
So aside from Whiplash and La La Land, he also did a biographical drama called First Man in 2018, also starring Ryan Gosling, and he did the period black comedy Babylon as well from 2022.
Which I really liked. It didn't do very well. A lot of people really didn't like it, but I really thought it was a great production.
Whiplash was nominated for Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay, but his biggest success came with La La Land, and he was nominated for 14 Academy Awards, winning 6, including Best Director, which made him the youngest person to win the award at age only 32.
He has done a few little screenplays for other movies outside of his own creation.
As a freelance writer.
Yeah. 2 of them I'm going to mention just because I'm a horror fan.
Mm-hmm.
The Last Exorcism Part 2 and 10 Cloverfield Lane, which I thought was pretty decent. I don't think it was a great follow-up to the original Cloverfield,
No.
but it was a fun movie nonetheless.
Well, and he was rewriting the draft, so it wasn't his
it wasn't his idea.
But he
Giving it
rewrote
that
the draft
screen
for that one.
treatment.
We talked about his partner in crime, Justin Hurwitz. He's the one who composed and orchestrated La La Land. Of course, he scored Guy and Madeline at a Park Bench, Whiplash. He also scored First Man and Babylon. You see, he also wrote, aside from doing scores, he also wrote the comedy for the sitcom The League.
And I think an episode or two for Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So got his hand into really some notable comedies as well.
He didn't write the lyrics. The lyrics actually go to Pasek and Paul. They're kind of the unsung heroes. No pun intended.
Oh.
Because they really wrote the heart and soul of those songs.
They did.
And I don't believe they get the credit that they deserve.
Yeah, no,
because they write a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was surprised
Yeah.
at how many really notable songs they've contributed to.
And the range of things they've
Mhm.
contributed to. The only song that wasn't written by them in La La Land was Start a Fire. That one was actually written by John Legend. I think maybe we'll move into... So Emma Stone, she plays Mia. You know, she's got a very distinct voice.
Mm-hmm.
Her voice is actually due to a bout of colic she had as a child when she was an infant. It caused her to cry so frequently that she developed nodules and calluses on her vocal cords. So that's what kind of gives her that distinct sound.
That had to be painful.
I'm sure it wasn't
Yeah.
comfortable. She's wanted to act since the age of 4. Initially, she wanted to do sketch comedy, but then she moved more into musical theater. So she's already been singing and dancing, at a young age for other things. She took vocal lessons for several years as well. So her acting debut was at age 11 in the stage production The Wind in the Willows, and she played Otter.
I thought it was quite interesting that she and Ryan Gosling share something in common.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that they both dropped out of high school to pursue acting. And they're so frequently paired together. I think this is like their 3rd or 4th movie where they've acted together.
Yeah. Adorably, Emma actually created a PowerPoint for her parents to convince them to drop out of school.
I enjoy that a lot.
Her PowerPoint presentation was titled Project Hollywood, featuring Madonna's 2003 song Hollywood. And she actually ended up convincing her mom to move into an apartment in Los Angeles. And she said she recalls that she went up for every single show on the Disney Channel and auditioned to play the daughter on every single sitcom. She said she ended up getting none. Between auditions for roles, she enrolled in online high school classes and worked part-time at a dog treat bakery to make ends meet. So she did end up finishing school.
Right.
That background actually really did prepare her very well for the role that she plays in this film.
I think so too.
Because it really is very characteristic of what she went through in this film.
Yeah, it's really impressive how much people, especially in the movie production industry, how tough their skin has to be.
Absolutely.
I would crumble immediately. I would be a hopeless mess.
You look at them and you're like, oh, it must have came easy to them.
Yeah.
Or they probably, know somebody, or their parents are really famous. Some of these people work their actual asses off to get any recognition and start wherever they can just to make it in Hollywood. And of course, if you're good enough, eventually you'll make
hopefully
it.
You'll
hopefully
noticed.
make it. She's been in a lot of things that I'm pretty familiar with.
Of course.
That sure you are and everybody else is. She's been in Superbad. She's been in the Zombieland series, so Zombieland and Zombieland Double Tapped.
Yep.
Crazy Stupid Love, which was also a movie Ryan Gosling was in. The Amazing Spider-Man, Gangster Squad, another one Ryan Gosling was in. She did The Croods and The Croods A New Age, so she did some animation. She was in Cruella, Poor Things, but she didn't get her recognition from Chazelle from any of those.
No.
She was actually in the Broadway musical Cabaret in 2014.
Which, if you're going to find somebody for a role that's a musical particularly, why not find them already playing in a musical?
In the best way possible, because he didn't just look for some A-list actor. He found an A-list actor, but he was seeing her in something that was very similar to something he was already going to be doing. So
he could already see kind of what she could
potential.
Do. Yeah.
Ryan Gosling, he plays Sebastian.
Mm-hmm.
He was raised a Mormon.
So I've read.
And that's only worth mentioning because you were raised a Mormon too. So
isn't that now the second person
I think
we've
so,
talked
yeah.
about that has had a Mormon background?
That we have a great respect for too. Yeah. He lived with his sister and mother at the age of 13 after his parents got a divorce. And he says he credits that experience with programming him to, quote, think like a girl.
All
Which
right.
I love.
That's fine, yeah. I mean, if you're going to learn to sympathize with other people, there's worse ways you could do it.
There's a reason he's a heartthrob, okay? It's
Mhm.
because he knows how to tickle
He's-
those strings,
He's
if
got
you know
a
what I
lot
mean.
going for him.
Dick Tracy was the movie that inspired him to act. That's great.
Yeah, it's a flashy movie.
fun- I mean, Madonna's in it.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It does sound like he had a pretty rough childhood.
Yeah, apparently he hated being a child.
He did not like being a kid. He didn't like school. Ryan didn't have any friends until he was about 14 or 15 years old.
Yeah, I got to say, when I was reading about his childhood, all I could think was, are he and I the same person?
Right.
Because I hated going to school. I had no friends. I was constantly picked on and bullied.
Okay, but did you bring steak knives to school to throw them at the kids on the playground?
No, because I was sensible.
Okay. He did that. And he was, of course, suspended for that.
Yeah, you would think.
He also had a difficulty reading, not very easy for him. He was tested for ADHD, but then the tests, he didn't have it.
Mhm.
So they really didn't know what was going on with him, why he wasn't learning to read. His mother then quit her job and brought him home to homeschool him, which really had an indelible effect on who he was. He said it was the first time he's really felt true autonomy and really felt that way ever since. He also performed with his sister. He did ballet, and he said performing was the first and only time he ever really felt true praise for the things that he did. So I think that was a big confidence booster for him as well. He also had a strange accent when he was younger. He thought that the Canadian accent wasn't tough. So he decided to pick his own accent,
Oh, that a boy.
and he chose Marlon Brando.
It definitely seems to have informed a lot.
Yeah. He was a little strange as a child, which I can totally appreciate. He made his acting career possible at the age of 13 with the Disney Channel's The All-New Mickey Mouse Club,
Oh, right.
along with other greats like Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Justin Timberlake, Kerry Russell. So
Really good company.
that
Yeah. There's really a lot of celebrity came out of that Mickey Mouse Club.
It
for
really
sure. Both
did.
the old one and the new.
Yes,
Newish,
absolutely.
newer.
He also did the TV shows Breaker High and Young Hercules.
Yeah.
A lot of episodes of those.
Where he was young Hercules.
I saw the cover of Young Hercules and I was like, oh, that's a 90s cover for
Yeah,
sure.
it is.
Of course, I remember him from The Notebook. I was reading Nicholas Sparks at the time.
Right.
And then that movie came out. And then I was like, oh my God, Ryan Gosling's so hot. You know, like it was such a romantic movie.
I think that's also the first time because I never watched Young Hercules.
No, I didn't either.
I never watched regular Hercules or old Hercules or whatever. But Notebook is definitely the first time I recall seeing it.
Recall seeing him. He was also in Stay, which I think is a little less known. He was in Half Nelson, Drive, Crazy Stupid Love we already mentioned, The Ides of March, A Place Beyond the Pines. Funny enough, in that movie, he was told to create the face tattoo on his face, and he was really embarrassed by it, but he asked the producer or the director if he could get rid of it, and they're like, no, you can't get rid of it now.
It's stuck now,
It's stuck
bud.
now. But there's a joke in La La Land about a guy with face tattoos.
Oh, when he's talking to his sister.
Yeah, you gonna be with a guy with face tattoos or whatever the line was.
She's chiding him for having high expectations, I believe.
Yeah.
Then she comes back and retorts like something, oh, it's not about, the looks aren't everything. And he goes, oh, well, then I've got a guy with a face tattoo you should meet.
Really golden heart.
Yeah, heart of gold.
Heart of gold.
Which actually is legitimately the way his character was.
Yeah.
In,
Yeah.
The Place Beyond the Pines.
He was also in Gangster Squad, which we mentioned, The Big Short, First Man, Barbie.
Barbie.
I can't forget Barbie. He's
Yeah.
great in that one. And The Fall Guy was another one like recently where he was just really spot on.
There's
Very
just a
good.
good shut off your brain and watch it action movie.
He's really good at being funny without it being weird or awkward.
Mhm.
Like his timing is really good.
Yeah, he has a very understated timing, and I love it.
It's great. He's also in the indie rock band Dead Man's Bones with
Yeah.
Jack Shields. So he does also sing. His main instrument of choice is actually guitar, which is really interesting because John Legend's instrument of choice is the piano.
Yes.
So John Legend had to learn how to play the guitar and Ryan had to learn how to play the piano.
Yeah, for this movie.
Luckily, they had a music background to begin with.
Right. Heard Dead Man's Bones quite a few times. It comes up on my Halloween playlist pretty often. When they set out to make that band, both of them were rather They had some background, like Ryan especially with his guitar. So they each had some background with different instruments, but they wanted to be the only two people in the group. Any other instruments they decided to play, they had to just do. So their music's not always super polished, but it's good.
Yeah. John Legend had said that he was actually jealous that Ryan picked the piano up so quickly because he said he really struggled to pick up the guitar.
Yeah.
And he was jealous because Ryan practiced a lot. It was 2 hours every day for a lot of weeks.
Yeah, like 8 weeks, I think.
It was a long time. But he said it astounded him how quickly he picked it up because he didn't think that it would happen. A couple other little cool things about him is he owns Tigine. It's a Moroccan restaurant in Beverly Hills. Tagine. You can pronounce it however you want. But he actually oversees the menu himself. And then this film actually is the second highest grossing film that he's ever done after Barbie.
Well, of course, after Barbie.
Before Barbie came out, this was his highest grossing film. Who's this third mystery person?
So the third mystery person I wanted to mention was John Legend. We've already kind of...
Okay. He was excited to do this one.
Yeah, and he is really the only other super notable character in this movie. Everyone else is very background and side.
I think the other one would be J.K.
Simmons.
Yeah, J.K. Simmons.
He really only appears in the beginning few scenes, and then he's gone.
Yeah.
John Legend, his character has almost the catalyst for bigger relationship moments between Mia and Sebastian. It's not his fault, but he provided an opportunity for Sebastian that caused potential rift between the two characters. John Legend, of course, I'm sure everybody knows him as a musician. He's performed with a lot of really notable musicians even before he gained fame himself. He's performed for Jay-Z, Alicia Keys, Lauryn Hill, Janet Jackson, Dilated Peoples, and the Black Eyed Peas even. And of course, the number of awards this man has won, I'm not even going to go into them.
Because it's ridiculous.
It is insane.
Yeah.
This is kind of his biggest movie role or acting role in general.
It's about time he's in a musical.
He was in Jesus Christ Superstar
was
as well.
He?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
He played Jesus.
Did he really?
He did.
I actually like Jesus Christ Superstar.
Jesus Christ Superstar was 2 years after La La Land. I'm sure this is maybe where they decided to cast him from, or just the fact that he's a damn good musician.
That helps, yeah.
King Herod in this live production
of Jesus Christ
Superstar, played by Alice Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
So I feel like we have to watch this at some point.
We even saw him live
like
not long ago. Man, he was great.
Ooh, that guy still puts on a hell of a show.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right. So, and I just wanted to mention John Legend in here because he deserves a call out as well, especially for his first major role.
Yeah, I literally just mentioned his name like a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to Acclaim. So I got legs. Woo-hoo.
Oh, after what, last week we didn't have them.
Yeah, it's been hit or miss the last couple weeks. So 10.4, which is really good. And for good reason.
A little deca leg.
Cute, Brandon.
Uh-huh.
So this film did really well. So it had a
surprise
$30 million budget. It made $151 million in the United States and Canada. Worldwide, it made $472 million. Another website I looked at, the numbers says 505 millions.
Yeah, either way.
Multiple millions, hundreds of millions.
I think the production company was happy with their returns.
You think they were? They almost saw $1 million opening weekend. It was $881,000. Aside from the numbers looking really good, the reviews were out of this world. Even Rotten Tomatoes, who's known to be like pretty hard on their reviews.
They can be, yeah.
They can be. 91%.
It's a really beloved movie.
It really is. Metacritic weighted at 94 out of 100. It was the third and sixth highest scoring film release in 2016 on each respective site. CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A-. And PostTrack reported audience gave it an 81% overall positive score and a 93% definite recommend.
High marks all around, generally praised for its direction, screenplay, cinematography, music and performances, and then the chemistry of both Stone and Gosling. So people found it hard to find something to dislike.
And it shows in the awards that it received, too. At the 74th Golden Globe Awards, it received 7 nominations. The film won all 7 categories for which it was nominated. It set a record for the most Golden Globes won by a single film. And then at the 89th Academy Awards, La La Land received a total of 14 nominations, tying the record for most nominations by a single film with the films All About Eve and Titanic. It won 6 of those, But of the three
Right.
of those, of All About Eve, The Titanic, and La La Land, it didn't receive Best Picture.
Which, boy, is that a big...
Yeah, I know. It's sad. Damien Chazelle himself is the first director, of course, to win the Academy Award for Best Director for Musical Film since Bob Fosse for Cabaret in 1972.
Wow, okay.
And Chazelle is the first director to win the award for Original Music Film since Vincent Minnelli for Gigi in 1958. Did you read about the kerfuffle that happened?
I did.
You want to tell us a little bit about it?
So as Best Picture was being presented, we had Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty doing the presenting. Warren Beatty handed a card to Faye to announce the winner, read aloud the name of the movie inside, which happened to be La La Land.
Woo! They all got up on stage,
The cast and crew, they celebrated, they came up on stage,
started speeches.
but Leia, that wasn't the right card.
Ooh.
Yeah. She read the card for Best Actress. It happened to be a duplicate of the Best Actress card
Whoops.
for Emma Stone. Emma Stone did genuinely win Best Actress earlier in the evening. Almost 3 full speeches had been given. And after about, I think it was somewhere between 2 and 3 minutes, finally, the producers solved the issue. Oh, man.
Well, how it's so heartbreaking.
The real winner, and very much deserved, was a movie called Moonlight, a semi-autobiographical drama tackling the topics of identity and belonging, especially in the African-American culture. I haven't seen the full thing. I've seen clips here and there, and it looks
really
intense.
good.
It looks really good. I would absolutely like to see it. Definitely, absolutely deserved its win from what I understand. Oh, what a mix-up.
That is a pretty terrible mix-up.
Yeah.
Especially between those two very highly competitive films.
Yeah.
Times,
and of course, the producers of the show came out and made a deep apology to the cast and crew of Moonlight and La La Land and Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty for the mix-up. Boy, oh boy, was that something.
That's messy. I think maybe what we might do is just chat a little bit about the inspiration for the film. Chazelle's idea originally was to take the old musical, but ground it in real life where things don't always exactly work out the way that you would hope they would. It was kind of to salute creative people who moved to Los Angeles to chase their dreams. But he had a lot of inspiration from musicals from the past. One of those inspirations was Jacques Demy's The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Do you have a little bit of background on that one?
I'm not super familiar with The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. I've dug into it a bit while I was researching this movie just because it was so relevant, but I've never seen it in its entirety. From what I've gathered, it does share quite a number of similarities. I suppose we should put some sort of spoiler.
No, I'm saying it's too late.
It's a warning.
What planet are you from?
Don't
You're
fire
done.
me, but don't fire me.
I'm sorry, Seb.
It's Christmas.
Yeah, I see the decorations. Good luck in the new year.
La La Land is divided into seasons, 3 seasons in the beginning, and then a 4th season at the end, which is actually a 5-year jump. For the most part, it's divided in seasons, we'll say. The Umbrellas of Cherbourg takes place over the stretch of years. So from like 1957 to 1963.
Okay.
And it's kind of divided up in segments along the way. Umbrellas is also a story of a couple in love separated by circumstance, which is, the typical theme for most musicals.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon. And they both build generally happy lives separately after separating from each other by meeting other people or pursuing other dreams. And then they kind of ultimately have a chance meeting at the end where they kind of reminisce fondly about the time they had, but realize it's best if they just move on.
Kind of like in La La Land.
A lot of overarching shared themes. Another subtle nod. If you weren't familiar with this Umbrellas movie, you would not notice this nod. I had no idea until we looked into it. When Mia's writing down her one-woman play idea, one of the characters' names is Genevieve. Genevieve is the main character in Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
Oh, okay.
So,
direct nod.
Yeah.
So Jacques Demy also did The Young Girls of Rochefort. That was another film that really inspired the dance and the jazz that's associated with this movie. Demy's kind of interesting in that he kind of broke the hyper serious mold of the 1960s movie making by using like really pretty, brilliant, candy colored sets. And you can see that in The Umbrellas of Cherbourg and The Young Girls of Rochefort. But according to Chazelle, Jacques is probably the single biggest influence, not just on this movie, but on everything he's ever wanted to do or has done.
Sure.
He said, there is no more formative movie for me than The Umbrellas of Cherbourg. So, I mean, it was really, really integral into like what
Yeah,
how he does his directing, his writing.
Another movie that Chazelle had done, Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench. Never seen it, but when I read the synopsis, it sounds very similar in style to La La Land, which also sounds very similar to the theming of umbrellas. It's so apparent that that is a movie he must have intense fondness for.
Yeah, and other films that he also did dip into was Broadway Melody of 1940.
Oh, Leia.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite all-time dance numbers ever in every musical, the one at the very end with Fred Astaire and Eleanor Powell, where they're performing to the Begin the Beguine. Oh, phenomenal. It's so clear, and the movements are so fluid and timed perfectly, and the chemistry between those two is insane. Just the really kind of subtle backdrop that they're dancing on. And you can actually see there's a sequence in La La Land where there's a very similar, almost a direct nod to that final set in Broadway Melody of 1940.
What scene was it?
It's the...
You gonna elaborate a little bit?
ending kind of dream sequence. It's a very darkened scene. It's kind of lit by what almost looks like Christmas lights in the background. And you can see them reflecting in the incredibly polished, clear floor that they're dancing on.
So Singing in the Rain was also another one, The Bandwagon, and An American in Paris.
American in Paris, another dance number I really liked from that movie that I remember from way back when I was a kid watching at my grandma's house, was that scene where Gene Kelly kind of returning home, and he comes across a bunch of children in the street, and he begins singing the I Got Rhythm song. He's like, he points at the kids and goes, I got, and they go, rhythm. And then he's tap dancing and, flailing all about and just pleasing the kids, acting silly and goofy. Oh, man, I cannot dance. I cannot move my body.
But it inspired you to want to, didn't it?
I wish I could move with the talent that man had in that little space with little kids kind of dotted all over the dance floor that he's using. He will sometimes dance backwards, and with insane acuity, he will just know exactly where the kids are, and he'll be tap dancing backwards and flailing his arms and legs about and not hit one of them. I'm so impressed. I cannot stress how awesome that is. It's okay. Moving on.
Your excitement it's palpable. It's palpable.
We're not here to talk about An American in Paris.
Well, and An American in Paris is also about the struggle of being an artist and reconciling with your dreams. So, I mean, that is kind of another reason why that was used as a backdrop for this film. And of course, the title La La Land, it's taken place in LA. It was originally supposed to take place in Boston, but they moved it to LA, and LA is part of, the reason why the term La La Land is for the title. But it's also because, you're living in La La Land, where, your dreams, you have all these dreams and aspirations, and your head's in the clouds when you're thinking about them, and you come to LA and the harsh reality is much different. Yeah.
Speaking of the harsh reality, we mentioned earlier how some of audition sequences that Mia had to go through were pulled from their shared experiences. Do you want to share some of those with us?
The one that I think is most notable is Ryan's experience with an audition that he had done, very similar to a scene that they showed in the movie where she's auditioning and she's crying, just like in your intro. She's crying and pouring her heart out, and then somebody comes in with a phone call and just ruins it. It actually happened to Ryan, of all people. That happened to him.
Oh, that's such a horrible story.
That's mortifying.
It makes
me cringe for that person who did that. Just how do you do that to somebody?
I've never auditioned for a thing in my
rude.
life, but that would be mortifying.
It's mortifying. And you wouldn't do it in a job interview. Why would you do it at an audition?
I would have promptly stopped crying for fake and started crying for real.
Right?
And just cried my way out of that room.
You may have gotten the role.
Yeah, maybe. Right?
One of the scenes that was a direct relation to another movie, which the movie is called Love Me Tonight from 1932, is the opening scene. And in that opening scene, it starts with that cacophony of street noises. In Love Me Tonight, it's also Paris waking up at dawn. There's shutters opening. There's people sweeping the floors. It's like the sound of the city, and that whole sound turns into a rhythm, which then turns into a musical number. He always wanted to do that,
right,
actually. Yeah. That was something he always aspired to do. It was a goal. He did it in this film, but that was the direct inspiration for that.
And another, not fully directly, but very closely mirrored, inspired scene was from a movie called Sweet Charity, which I've never seen, but after watching the clip that this was kind of inspired from, I kind of want to check it out. But the number in La La Land, There's Someone in the Crowd, is kind of directly inspired by this song from Sweet Charity called There's Gotta Be Something Better Than This. If you watch that sequence, it's 3 girls dancing about, all in different colored dresses.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of skirt flares. There's a lot of twirls and back and forth singing dialogue.
I know exactly which one you're talking about because I've seen that scene before, and I don't remember where, but it's been brought up before. So I had mentioned earlier that Ryan spent 2 hours a day, 6 days a week on piano lessons so he could learn all the music by heart. They actually had a pianist on retainer to do all the work for Ryan.
Right.
The guy's name was Randy Kerber. He was a good pianist. But because he learned his lines and his piano sequences so well, they never had to use him, nor did they ever have to use a hand double or CGI for any of his roles.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool. Great job for Ryan.
They already had somebody hired because they're like, I mean, he can fake it, but he's probably going to need somebody to actually do the piano work. Nah, Ryan did it all himself.
While Gosling does all of his performance on screen, they still did use, Randy Kerber must have gotten some sort of payday because he actually did do the musical tracks in pre-production.
He did, yeah. He did all the first recordings.
Yeah, and they actually did use his music over top of Ryan's playing because obviously on set and in clubs,
well, you got to control that a little bit, yeah.
So all of the post-added piano playing was actually Randy Kerber, but you are seeing
Ryan play,
and I promise you, he probably did it just fine on set.
He probably did. I guarantee it.
In La La Land, LA is the stand-in for Casablanca, basically. And, a lot of the theme still kind of pulls over too, where one person sacrifices their relationship to give someone else a chance at a better life, and then they kind of stay behind as the other person advances, or goes on to better things. Casablanca, while not the overarching theme of the movie, still has little bits kind of peppered in.
Yeah. I mean, it's Casablanca. So aside from like all of the film references we talked about, La La Land also is influenced by some painters. Ed Ruscha, I probably murdered that, and David Hockney, they explore a lot of the mythology of LA in their painting. They used a lot of that in some of the paintings that they had in the film. The French Fauvist painter, Raoul Duffy, is known for his ecstatic washes of color. He's also cited as the visual influence for the film. So the film actually has a lot of color play. They use, for Sebastian's tone, he uses browns, blues, and Emma's got more like the yellows and the bright colors and the reds, the bright blues. But they also use like lighting in the windows. I think in Sebastian's apartment, there's a red light, I believe, or maybe it was a blue light. Green. It was a green light.
In the apartment, yeah.
Yeah, coming in through the window. But they really tried to use colors in this film to emote like the feelings of the film.
Yeah, to help express.
Yeah. And so a lot of these artists were direct inspirations for the colors for the film as well.
I know Chazelle got a lot of crap for lighting the apartment green.
Yeah, he did.
I don't know.
Doesn't regret it though.
Yeah, he doesn't. He shouldn't regret it because I don't know what his exact reasoning was aside from just liking the aesthetic. When you're watching that scene, you'll realize it's all about jealousy. The whole scene is jealousy between the two. The green just lights that purposefully. Yeah, envy, jealousy. Yes, exactly. So I think it was a great
good use
touch
of the color.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't really part of the inspiration, but it's also something about Emma that I forgot to mention earlier.
Sure.
Her favorite musical of all time was Les Miserables from 2012, which had Anne Hathaway in it. She actually saw the play when she was a child, and it actually inspired her to love musicals. Emma was the first actor to win an Oscar for performing in a musical since Anne Hathaway.
Wow.
So it all comes around.
Yeah. So in February of 2023, La La Land was announced to be in the process of being made into a stage musical, a Broadway musical.
Mm-hmm.
Has yet to materialize, but the lyricists, Pasek and Paul, are coming back to help with the lyrics, kind of add some new songs and make sure everything kind of all flows together for the stage performance. So it's in good hands.
Yeah.
In addition to that, there was in 2017, some comedians got together and created, I guess you would call it a parody performance, but they created a spin-off show, the So Long Boulder City, which was the play that Mia was writing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Film. They've performed that. It's not on Broadway, but it's
fun little addendum.
Still got at least made, and people got to have fun with that.
That's pretty smart. I like the idea of that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
The next segment is something we usually do, but it's different.
I know. It's different.
because this is out with the new, in with the old.
Oh, twist on the theme.
And it's really just to touch on some of the old stuff that was used to make this new film kind of like bring it up to speed.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to keep the film to look like a lot of the films from the past, he used a different camera than he would have normally used for other things. So this movie was shot on, and I don't know what all this means, so people who are like camera aficionados probably know what all this means, but it was shot on a celluloid 4x super 35mm film, not digitally, I guess is basically what that comes down to, with Panavision anamorphic lens in Cinescope's 2.55 by 1 aspect ratio. It's not true CinemaScope, though, because that technology is actually no longer available, so they weren't able to use that. But he tried to use as much of the old stuff as he possibly could to make this film look a lot like those older films
give it that
did.
feel.
Yeah, give it that
whether you
feel.
as the viewer knows it or not.
There's a couple filming locations that they're directly responsible for reviving, which I thought was just lovely. One of them is Angel's Flight Trolley. Yeah, so it was built in 1901, a long, long, long time ago. And it was shut down in 1969. And then it derailed in 2013, where it kind of just stayed derelict.
Yeah.
Chazelle's production team was able to secure permission to use it for just a day to do some filming with it. Then, because they reopened it for the day, people were interested in it again. It actually reopened to the public again in 2017. So it's something you can go see now because of this film. Another place that the production saved was the Rialto. It had been closed since 2007 because it was unable to sustain itself because it's a single movie theater.
Right, yeah.
But it's now open again. There's also a jazz club sequence in the film at the Lighthouse Cafe in Hermosa Beach, California. The Jazz House had been a home for jazz since it opened in 1949. So it has some roots.
Mm-hmm.
Jazz musicians who performed include Chet Baker, Miles Davis, Art Blakely, and Cannonball Alderley. Howard Rumsey owned the Lighthouse Cafe and brought jazz there from 1949 through the 1960s. So it had quite deep roots in jazz. The set designers actually didn't want to change much of the interior, but they did add stained glass on the front window and a circular stained glass lighthouse image behind the piano.
You got to
they
spice
spruced
it up
a little bit for the movie, but for the most part, it's how it's always looked. We had talked about the use of CinemaScope. Chazelle is a big fan of Max Ophüls. He's a German and French film director and screenwriter. He was pretty active in like the 1950s, but he was known as the master of camera movement. And so he actually took the way he moves his camera and like how he directs and how he films things as a direct model for how he wanted the camera to move in La La Land. So as Chazelle describes it, and this is a quote from him, the idea is to have a camera that itself feels melodic and feels like a dancer. So he wanted the camera itself to have movement. He said the camera never gets in the way of the dancing on screen, but becomes part of the choreography nonetheless. The last thing I have about this segment is the location where Mia performs her one-woman show. It's at the Hayworth Theater in Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles, and it opened in 1925 as the Masquerade Theater. By 1950, the Hayworth was known as the Vagabond Theater, and it was an art house and revival theater that screened many of the movies which inspired Damien Chazelle to make La La Land.
So not only were some of the acting experiences of Gosling and Stone kind of thrown into the mix just to give inspiration there, there's also some story beats that got decided by
Actors themselves.
So Chazelle's first idea for Sebastian was to have the goal of being a successful musician. Ryan thought it'd be better if his goal was to own a nightclub. So that sort of twisted the story a little bit more. Because, I mean, if his goal was just to be a successful musician, Sebastian kind of achieves that in this movie. To give extra life to that idea, it seems like the club ownership was a nice little twist to give more depth to that whole situation. And it was Emma Stone's idea to have Mia design the logo and the name for his club. Chazelle took those two
mashed them together.
Pretty good ideas and threw it in the story. So it seems like he's a good guy to work for. We mentioned earlier how Stone and Gosling had to do a lot of learning and training for their roles. You know, they had some experience in music. Obviously, Ryan was in the music group. Emma Stone had been doing musicals on stage. Yeah. Neither one of them are really super experienced as far as that was a preference.
That was intentional.
That was.
He had the choreography done by Mandy Moore. And if people know who Mandy Moore is, or if you're a fan of the show So You Think You Can Dance. You've probably heard her name before. That's where she's real popular for. She was actually tasked with making the choreography for Emma and Ryan real, like a normal person would do it, like somebody who's not classically trained would do it. So she almost had to turn off her perfectionist earmuffs or whatever you want to call it and make them dance like, like you and I would be dancing, ordinary people. They're not pros.
Yeah, when you watch the movie, and this is one of the things that sort of caught me off guard when I first started watching it. The dancing was really understated. It was smaller movements. It was less exaggerated than I'm used to seeing in a musical. Very harsh to my eyes, especially after I had learned what other musicals Chazelle took as inspiration for some of these dance sequences. I'm like, what are you doing? You're ruining this old great dance number. But that's not the point. The point is that these are average, everyday people performing dance movements that they're not used to dancing. So it's going to look not as grand as your Fred Astaire's and Ginger Rogers and Gene Kelly's and stuff like that. Oh, and talk about pressure when it comes to some of those dance numbers. Leia, did you read about the Lovely Night dance sequence? Did you read about the kind of trouble they had with that?
You mean the sunset being like the magic hour or whatever?
They had only a 30-minute window over the course of 2 nights to get it right. So between 7:20 and 7:50 p.m., they had to get this number done right.
Yeah.
In the end, they had only done 5 takes. They would do a take, they would run back down to the start.
And do it again.
They'd get the sweat wiped off them and they'd go again. Luckily for them, they managed it.
Yeah.
They pulled it off. It's a great little sequence.
Yeah.
During one of the takes, Emma Stone actually fell over the bench. Chazelle said, to her credit, she just got back up and they kept going because they couldn't ruin the full take.
Yeah.
But it was the 4th take, apparently, that they ended up using in the film.
And they didn't piece them together, right? It was
just one
because that's kind of what his thing is he doesn't like to do parsed out takes. Yeah.
He likes to do full takes.
Yeah. Yeah. She also did the audition one with Hurwitz in the background behind like the curtain playing piano. So she could speak the singing lines at her own pace.
Yeah.
They ended up doing that one like 8 times. They ended up going with the second take. It's interesting to hear the process behind how they get some of these takes.
It's stuff I never would think to do, but that's why I'm not a filmmaker.
Right? Yes. Or a singer.
Or a singer. Well, there's many reasons I'm not a singer.
Aside from Damien putting people or actors in his films that aren't classically trained. He also has a couple of other signatures that he usually puts in a lot of his films. And one of those signatures is his use of long, uninterrupted takes in his films. For this film, it was particularly challenging because neither Emma or Ryan are classically trained dancers or singers, and to have them do a long, uninterrupted take without mistakes.
Yeah, perfect take.
Is almost impossible.
Yeah.
That was, I think, one of the only challenges, but on the plus side, that wasn't what he was going for either, was perfection. But he did still try to make those long, uninterrupted dance numbers with the right lighting, of course.
And you had talked before about the particular camera he was using. It needed to be reloaded with film every 10 minutes. Not only did they have to do perfect, uninterrupted takes, they almost had to just by nature of the fact that the films needed to be restocked every 10 minutes.
The takes had to be 10 minutes or less.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that he likes to do is have at least one sequence that's spooled backwards. So for La La Land, there's a scene in the planetarium where Ryan and Emma appear to fall out of the air and sit perfectly under seats, and then they kiss, and then the camera zooms in for a close-up before it fades. But that was actually shot in reverse. So the sequence was where it went black, zoomed out to the kiss, telescoped out to the 2-shot where you can see them, and then the wide shot. And then Stone and Gosling are lifted out of their chairs and the entire sequence is run in reverse.
Yeah.
Prior to filming, Damien, Ryan, and Emma actually visited Gene Kelly's widow, and they were able to look through like Kelly's film memorabilia. They also got to look through his leather-bound copy of the script for Singing in the Rain, which I think is pretty unique because I don't think many people get to actually look at that.
Oh, sure, yeah.
At the end of their visit, Kelly's widow's dog escaped, and Chazelle and Gosling ended up running through traffic to rescue the dog. And Chazelle said to Gosling, he's like, "We are not going to kill Gene Kelly widow's dog this time, all right? We're not doing that." They did rescue the dog.
That's good. Impromptu dog catcher.
Yeah.
I heard one extra little anecdote about that meeting. So Chazelle was on record as saying, hey, we went over to see Gene Kelly's widow, and I'm a normal human being, so I brought a bottle of wine, and Emma's a normal human being, so she brought a bouquet of flowers. Then there's Ryan, who shows up with a 25-pound apple pie.
I'm sorry, but Ryan seems like he's the coolest dude that's ever happened and totally in my wheelhouse in terms of mentality.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
Yeah.
If he had showed up at my house with a 25-pound apple pie, I'd be like, this guy, he knows a woman right
He
here.
knows the way to my heart.
Like you said, he knows women, man.
He's got that sense.
He thinks like a girl. So J.K. Simmons was in this film.
Indeed he was.
He was technically the first person cast. He was in the film Whiplash.
Indeed.
Major role in the film Whiplash.
Hell of a character in the film Whiplash.
Chazelle actually had said that he likes to muse that it's the same guy from Whiplash, but many years after he's been fired. And then he's decided to despise jazz and only wants to hear Christmas jingles for the rest of his life.
Yeah. And to be clear, it's certainly not the same character, but in his head canon,
in his musings, in his
fun
mind.
little mind.
Yeah.
It was supposedly a little in-joke between J.K. Simmons and Chazelle to say that this is the same character.
Yeah.
But it's not really.
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling's Sebastian is, of course, obsessed with jazz in this film, but he's also obsessed with the past. In the beginning, we see he's driving a 1982 Buick Riviera.
Yeah.
Whereas Mia is driving a newer Prius.
Yeah.
And when you see him in his apartment, it's full of boxes, all packed up, all memories of the past.
The colors that are used every time you see him too are almost kind of vintage
retro
colors.
vintage colors. But he's like, whoa, you haven't seen Rebel Without a Cause? When Mia mentions that she hasn't, he says, we gotta fix that. And he's obsessed with the Van Beek, the former jazz club, being turned into a samba tapas club, right? So he's obsessed that all these modern things are replacing the past, which I think was funny because there's a point where Mia says, hey, nobody's going to go see a jazz club that's just old jazz, right? And then she mentions that naming the place Chicken on a Stick, you are still alluding to the past and no one's going to want to go to that club named Chicken on a Stick. So name it Seb's, make it modern. It's also ironic because Sebastian's upset about the fact that the Samba Tapas place is specializing in samba and tapas. He even says in the movie,
Samba tapas. Pick one, Do one right.
Well, he's also wanting to do a chicken and jazz club.
Pick one and do it right.
But he's refusing to acknowledge his hypocrisy because it's his dream. He's so obsessed with the past, and Mia is so forward-facing. She's so future-oriented, so modern. But yet, we see a turn in him, which, short of giving away the full rest of the movie, and that's thanks to Mia's influence. You had touched on earlier about how Chazelle's point in this movie was to see their dreams differently. Chazelle was quoted as saying that he was taken with the idea, the concept, that in your life you'll meet someone who transforms you. Maybe not necessarily be your one and only.
Or someone's.
To be your one and onlys, but they'll set you on a path that you didn't realize, that you didn't think was your path. You know what? Unfortunately, sometimes that's a path you just have to travel alone. And we see that whole through line. It's happening before your eyes throughout the film, and you don't notice it until it's finished.
Yeah.
That's the idea. So Damien Chazelle, obviously a drummer by training, and had been a drummer in the band that he started in university in Harvard with Justin Hurwitz, and the band was named Chester French. Well, Chazelle went to try out for the drummer spot, and he ended up getting it. He was auditioning against a man named D.A. Wallach. So D.A. Wallach lost the drummer spot, but took the lead singer spot in that group. Well, it just so happens that D.A. Wallach is in La La Land, so there's that 80s cover group at the pool party.
Yeah.
And the one that Emma Stone's Mia goes to, and she sees Sebastian playing keyboard. And he's got that red coat on.
He looks so uncomfortable.
He looks so weird and ridiculous. So he's the lead singer of that 80s cover group.
Okay.
Since Chester French isn't a thing anymore, he's gone on to do his own thing, and he's got recording contracts, so he's still making music, loving it. I've listened to some of his stuff solo. It's great. Chester French was good too.
Yeah.
He really is a talented singer.
Yeah.
Did you look more into the Sock of Fleagles, the Flock of Seagulls connection? Watching the music video for I Ran, the Flock of Seagulls music video.
Talking about like the outfits that he wore? Or?
Yes.
I did read about that.
Did you read about that?
Yeah, but I didn't write anything down about it.
The funny thing is, when you watch the pool party sequence, the rest of the group are wearing blue shirts and Sebastian's wearing that red jacket, standing out amongst the group. And yeah, he's wearing a jacket. The rest of them are all wearing shirts. When you watch the I Ran video, all of the group is wearing white shirts and dark colored pants, except for the keyboardist, who's wearing a bright red shirt.
Crazy bright red shirt, huh?
And the keyboardist in that group also happens to be the lead singer. So when you watch the music video, you can see the keyboardist doing his thing, and boy, is it plain. It's three or four total keys throughout the entire music video.
Mm-hmm.
Key 1, press and hold. Key 2, press and hold. And hold. It's not complicated at all.
Yeah.
So you get to understand why Sebastian was so put off
Sad about that.
by that request.
You really, that's what you're going to
Because
make me play?
he's like,
I'm better than this.
This is the least complicated
I
thing
am
you can
more
make me do.
talented
Right,
than
yes,
this.
Exactly. So he's upset on that level that it's an insult to his talent.
That makes that scene even funnier.
But requesting Iran from a serious musician is just, it's too far.
My lord, did you just say a serious musician?
I don't think so.
But of course, she also requested it because the second time she met him was when she went to go compliment him and he was running out the door after being fired. So it's an insult on two levels.
Yeah.
Right?
It's very smart. I got to read you a quote from Chazelle, and it's one that I very explicitly wanted to say because I thought it was very poignant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's short. It says that they, meaning Emma and Ryan, do a very difficult thing in this movie, which is to ground the most ungrounded of genres. And I was like, that is so poignant because it's totally true. And I think that was the goal that he was trying to get across in this, is that he said he was trying to create a musical that felt grounded in reality. Today's age is more iPhone, it's the YouTube generation. It's like fast paced. It's not whimsical as it was back in the past. And I think that's kind of the point he was trying to get at. One of the reasons I learned to like this so much is we need musicals for our generation. Mm-hmm. And this is definitely a musical for our generation.
That idea leads me into something I was going to kind of round out with as a nod to last week. Prancing off of what you had just said. So this movie, I fully admit, the first time I watched it was just when we watched it for this particular episode. Never seen it before.
No context.
No
whatsoever,
context.
Other than we knew it was a musical.
Right. After watching it, I walked away not liking it.
Mm-hmm.
After doing some research on the film, I warmed up to it more, and then I watched it again. And you know what? I still would not say it's my favorite musical in the world. It's not. But I like it a lot more, and I understand more of what it was trying to do. And I have a lot more respect for it.
Yeah.
When I watched it, I saw a movie with, as we had mentioned earlier, understated dance moves.
Yeah.
Uncomplicated lyrical melodies. When I was comparing it in my head to musicals of the past, I think of grand movements, exaggerated gestures, complicated footsteps, and really meaningful, emotional, powerful lines delivered by really powerful voices. That wasn't what this movie is, and that's not what it was even supposed to be. Mm-hmm. This was a movie that was not necessarily made for me, who watched it the first time. And I realized I went into the movie watching it with the eyes of Sebastian.
Yeah.
I went into the movie expecting you got to preserve the old ways of doing a musical.
Yeah.
You have to constantly call back to and remember what was before that because that was when it was good. Mm-hmm. But I've also in the past railed against people who latched too hard onto nostalgia past. Because you're forgetting this, I guess, is more of an idea of what John Legend's character was saying. If no one's listening to jazz the way it was, then you're the one who's killing jazz.
Yeah.
And I'm not making comment on jazz. I am not enough of a jazz connoisseur to make that sort of comment. But from a musical perspective.
Well, from a general perspective, if you look at it in a general light, like anything that's in the past doesn't mean it's involved in a lot of other aspects of our life.
Looking at this movie from a newer, more modern perspective, I get it. I absolutely get it. It's made for a generation who is constantly left behind, a generation whose goals and aspirations and dreams, as lofty as they are made even more unattainable because of the expectations that the generations before them have made and left for them.
Yeah.
We're not leaving a world that's easy to the generations that are coming after us.
No.
I think this musical sits right on the edge for our age group, but definitely hits more firmly with those younger than us.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's who this musical was made for.
Yeah.
Us a little bit. And if we're open-minded enough, and if we're open-minded enough, this musical can fit us.
Yeah.
But it's really made for those younger than us.
Yeah. And you can't just have all the old musicals from the past. You have to have new stuff and it has to be relevant.
Yeah.
It can't just be what it was back in the
exactly.
past.
As fun as watching Gene Kelly do his I Got Rhythm is, it's entrancing. You'll get lost in it watching it. But that's not what this generation is looking for.
Right.
And that's fine. Mm-hmm. That's great because you're taking what worked and adding a modern flair to it.
Yeah.
Like when...
That doesn't take away from the past. It just adds to our future.
When you see Sebastian on stage with the Messengers, and that it starts out with that sort of jazzy opening, the song that they're playing, the Light a Fire, right? But then it quickly leads into more of you get a bass line that pops in, you get some background singers coming up. Jazz is still underlying it, but it's being supported by more modern ideas and concepts. And as adverse as Sebastian was to that idea at the beginning of the movie, when you see him playing that song on stage with the Messengers, he's got a smile on his face the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
He's watching the crowd and he's loving the reaction that he's seeing the crowd give.
Yeah.
I think that's the perspective that this movie in particular is helping me see. Again, still not my favorite musical.
Yeah.
But it's definitely changed my perspective.
Well, even when you look at how dance moves have changed over the
Mhm.
years, if we danced the same way we did 100 years ago, I mean, we wouldn't have the styles
Yeah.
that we have today. And I think a lot of the styles we have today are amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the 50s and 60s, they were coming up with new ways to tap dance, new ways to dance jazz. There's so many new things that had come out. I mean, I read even a couple things while doing research about this of different dance styles that were coming out in the 50s and 60s. If we hadn't explored those, or if somebody had clung to the past and said, that's not how we dance, we would never have any of that.
To the point of another point where he was telling Sebastian, hey, you're looking at all these jazz icons. You're putting them on a pedestal. And that's great. You should. They deserve it. But they were revolutionaries for their time.
Mm-hmm.
So back in their time, when they were revolutionizing jazz,
Mm-hmm.
the
That was
audiences, the audiences were not happy about it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, say, for instance, when electric guitar came to jazz.
Oh, man. The
Forget
hell is
about
this?
Bad idea, that
Yeah.
says everyone who loved jazz before.
Yeah.
But it evolved the style, and now it's commonplace, it's accepted. I'm not saying every bit of jazz should become the bass line brought with the Messengers, but it's a step. It's an evolutionary step. I mean, all that said, it's a long way of me saying I didn't like the movie at first, but I get it, I respect it, I understand what it was
And you
doing,
like it a little bit better now.
and I like it much better now.
Yeah. Yeah, I had kind of the same feeling. I didn't quite have as much affection for this musical as I thought I was going to when I
Right.
first started watching. And particularly when we got to the end, I was like, all right, what the hell did I just watch? Like, that was so sad. Like, I didn't like it. I've always been a fan of those musicals, like you said, with the large numbers, the highest of singing and dancing talents, impeccable timing, familiar tunes. Those are the things that I look forward to when I watch a musical. This film seemed almost in complete contrast to what I thought I loved about musicals, but I would say once I finished kind of doing the research on this and my feelings started to change, I started to realize it was less about the talent and more about the feeling that you get from watching the musical, like the journey that you take with the people that are in the musical. And yeah, the talent is great, but it isn't always about that. And I would say the part that I like about musicals is the way they make me feel, because I'm a pretty feely person. The other issue that I had is that I compared it to my favorite musical, which is Moulin Rouge.
Right.
But in a lot of ways, Moulin Rouge is very similar to La La Land. The difference between the two was that Moulin Rouge's lyrics were familiar to me.
Mhm.
So I think it was easier for me to accept it.
Yeah.
Because it was very high fantasy. It was songs that, while they were stylized, I knew all the words to them, particularly the Beatles songs, because I'm a huge Beatles fan. So I really, really loved that movie for those reasons. But both of those movies were bittersweet. They were touching. They both featured stars who were not singers or dancers by trade. And I would say after screening La La Land a couple times, I did find the numbers were actually kind of catchy.
They really are.
I was singing one of them yesterday in my head. And the chemistry between Emma and Ryan was actually pretty inspiring,
It really
too.
was.
They did really well together. The other thing that I took home, just from my perspective, is the particular significance I felt that women have in this movie in their struggle to find where their place is in society.
Mhm.
These two people love each other, but Emma's not willing to give up her dreams for love.
Right.
If you look at the past and you look at musicals from the past, the woman was always taken care of by the man, and that's not the case in this movie. And I think that was a little takeaway that I got from this was, why should she have to give up her dreams, for love if he's not going to do it, I'm going to be a jazz musician. And she's like, well, that's great. I'm going to be an actress. So So I think that was also another thing I didn't think about before when I watched the movie. But then as I've been doing my research, I've been kind of getting a sense that that's, a small part of it.
Yeah.
All in all, I would say, while I don't put this on as high a pedestal as Moulin Rouge, because it is my all-time favorite musical, it's actually not quite as different from it as I had originally thought. And I think that the young people of today need their own thing, their own musicals that inspire them, that make them feel good. And I think this is what it did it.
I watched In the Heights, and I will say from a musical standpoint, I like In the Heights better. But from a story standpoint, La La Land is better. In the Heights is prescriptive. It's by the books.
Yeah, you know what's going to
musical.
happen.
You know the outcome from the moment you sit down to start watching it. But this movie, truly, if you're expecting the old general outline of a musical, you're going to end up with a different movie than you expected to get. But Leia, is that about all we got?
I gave you my 2 cents. You
All
gave
right.
me your 2 cents.
Yeah.
I think we're ready to wrap it up here at the movie theater lobby.
I think we are. As we mentioned, this was sort of a first for us, a movie that neither of us had seen before recording.
I wasn't sure how I was going to talk about a musical either because I'm not musically inclined.
Right.
And I was a little concerned I was going to murder people's favorite genre.
Yeah. I'm
by not being very knowledgeable about musicals. I mean, I like musicals and I watch them.
Yeah.
But I'm not technically savvy in it.
Yeah, I'm not either. I love and adore musicals. I watch a lot of them.
I think you know more about it than I do, to be quite honest.
And I'm no musical historian. I'm no musical connoisseur. But I know what I like in a musical. And this movie, after reflection, surprised me. So I think that's what our podcast is striving
We're hoping
to be.
it does that for you.
Yeah.
Because it did it for us. And that was the whole goal of this podcast, was to hopefully you listen to one of these episodes, even if you're not interested in the movie. You watched it, maybe you didn't like it. You listen to the episode and you're like, oh, and then you give it another watch. And maybe you love it.
We are absolutely okay with people listening to only the episodes of the movies they love.
Yeah.
And that's great. We appreciate that. We're not going to tell anyone how to listen to our show, but we really hope that you will listen also to the episodes on movies that you didn't like.
Yes.
Honestly, our biggest goal is for you to listen to an episode about a movie you didn't like.
And maybe you still don't like it.
Yeah, maybe you still won't like it.
But maybe you could gain some small appreciation for it.
But maybe you'll find an appreciation.
Or you know somebody who might like it
Yeah.
because, hey, it's got, some kind of bit of trivia that you're like, wow, my friend would really love that.
Or you'll just give the movie a second chance.
Or you know what? You're just going to kill it at trivia night, right?
Or that too. Who knows? Well, I think, you know what? It's also worth mentioning, Leia.
Yeah.
Because this is going to lead right into our coming soon. April 25th, designated La La Land Day in LA.
Is it really?
It is. Because, it was a big film. It got 6 wins at the
And
Academy
it was
Awards,
in LA.
14 nominations based in LA.
And it also helped a lot of LA businesses.
It sure did. So we were going to move this episode to April 22nd.
Yes.
To release kind of in line with that. That's also Easter week. And Leia and I, non-religious, we do not celebrate Easter necessarily.
No, we
Not really our
don't.
thing. But we know a lot of people do, so we needed to give them an Easter-touched movie.
Yeah.
So Leia, will you tell them
Yes.
what Easter movie we came up with?
Yeah, you guys are going to love this. So next week, we are covering the, quote, Easter classic, wink, wink, Mallrats.
That's right. We're going back to Kevin Smith for Easter.
Yes, I think it's totally going to be, great. It's
Yeah,
gonna be perfect.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, you can check us out at themovietheaterlobby.com. Email us at themovietheaterlobby@gmail.com. And you can find us on socials at The Movie Lobby on Blue Sky, as well as The Movie Theater Lobby on YouTube. We're fairly active on Blue Sky, so if you want to reach out to us, we absolutely adore chit-chatting with you guys.
Absolutely.
It's so fun.
One of our favorite things in the world.
Yeah.
I'd rather spend my downtime instead of just doing nothing. Please give me something to do.
Like you never do nothing.
Well,
You're always doing something.
I tend to find small minutes of nothing.
But this is more fun.
This is definitely more fun. I love talking movies and just general nerdery. If you want to talk to me about anything, comic books, video games.
Oh, don't get them started on D&D.
Horror and sci-fi, D&D.
Oh, don't get them
just
started.
throw it in there.
Comic books,
y'all.
don't get them started.
Yeah, let's get going. Start your own conversations with us. You don't even have to just start with the topic we start. All that's to be said, wherever you do listen to us, if you think we deserve it, give us a little star rating.
Yes.
Also, please subscribe.
If you
to
want more
us.
and you want to stay up to date on our new episodes, they come out every Tuesday. And so if you subscribe, you'll get a little message.
Indeed, indeed. Any reviews that you write, we will read out on the podcast. We will do our best. Sometimes
Unless you
we forget.
explicitly say you don't want us
there's
to.
also that. And then please, of course, spread us around, share us with your friends and your family, whoever else you think might enjoy what we're doing. And if you want to find me, Brandon, find me, Brand MC on Blue Sky. And Leia, what about you?
You can find me, Leia McClevey, at @LMNerdroom at all of the previously mentioned socials and at lmnerdroom@gmail.com.
There we are. Well, of course, finally, Leia, as we get ourselves out of here, we need to thank our listeners, of course.
Thank you.
Because they are the ones who give us their time and attention, and they don't have to.
No.
But they choose to give it to us. The one thing in the world that you will never get more of is your time. So thank you for spending it here with us. Also, of course, Leia, after I thank all of our listeners, we, as always, have to extend a very gracious, thankful thank you to you. So thank you, Leia, for joining us here.
Hold on. Ready? Thank you, Brandon.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm not going to follow that up with anything.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Whew. I'm feeling the vapors. Well, thank you. I already said thank you.
Yeah, that sounded really sad too.
Oh, I'm the sad
Thank
clown.
you.
Thank you for joining us today. Oh, let's get out of here, Leia.
Let's leave. We need to close it up.
Okay. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Anyways, the Samba Tapas place now, so.
What's a samba tapas place?
You know, it's just like a samba place where they serve tapas.
Oh.
Yeah, so the joke's on history. I don't know. That's LA. They worship everything and they value nothing.